You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Reynolds from Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds & Kline Appraisal, and your host of this episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. Today, we are talking about Dropbox. Why are we talking about Dropbox? Well, it is one more company that has decided we're going to have all of our employees work from home remotely forever and ever. Why do we keep talking about this? Well, this has a lot to do with how the downtown commercial cores structure themselves kind of moving forward. A lot of companies are saying, oh, we're going to do this forever, just remotely. You guys can work from home forever. Yeah. And then other companies are like, no, we need you back Q1 2021. So all these businesses, depending on their business model, of course, some have more flexibility in the way that they can make this happen for their employees. But Dropbox, I'm a huge proponent of Dropbox. Back in 2011, I took both Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds & Kline Appraisal virtual. So we no longer had physical office space. Everybody worked wherever their laptop was, wherever their phone was. And in 2011, that was a little tricky. But Dropbox was one of those companies that allowed us to use cloud storage instead of a VPN. We figured it was secure enough for the information that we needed to handle back and forth. So instead of having an office with a dedicated server and a VPN going out to wherever people were located, we just started using Dropbox, and we also used another company that was owned by Motorola that you would never hear of, and we use SugarSync to this day. We use SugarSync and Google Drive. So virtual storage, cloud storage, super important to us, because back in 2011, a lot of folks said, Sean, if you don't have an office, how can you run a business? Let alone run two businesses? Well, guess what? You can. And sometimes it's not ideal, and the solutions aren't necessarily easy, because a lot of people are like, well, I'm just going to go into the office. But guess what? During this pandemic, everybody's like, oh, hey, you can make this work. Yeah, you can. Sometimes it's harder to circumvent the issues that you're working on with a solution that is virtual than it is just to do it live in person. I'm a big proponent of admitting that, because everybody who says, oh, it's just so much better to do everything virtual. No, you're not understanding the full concepts of what you have to deal with. And there's a lot of stuff that I would still rather do person to person. I mean, if I could have, 1,000 people in an auditorium listening to me, would that be more impactful than YouTube? Yeah, in a certain way it would. You've got more one-on-one kind of contact. You can see the guy up on the stage. You can see what he's doing. You guys are watching me on YouTube, or you may be listening to me on the podcast, and you can just hear my voice intonation. But on YouTube, you can at least see what I'm kind of doing. But in person, just always way better. So from some things. For other things, like working during a pandemic, hands down, I don't want to go into the office. Well, I always do, because I have a small office, just me and a couple of my guys. And guess what? We can socially distance. Do we all the time? No, because I think a lot of that has just been silly, and it's a lot of people fear-mongering the whole Rona thing, and I don't really buy into that for a large portion of it. The whole mask thing annoys me. I do wear a mask, but just so other people don't yell at me. That's where I'm kind of at. So let's jump on in. But before you do, I'd love to have you subscribe. If you are new to the YouTube channel, which we've got about 300 subscribers a day right now tuning in. So if you're new, thank you. I do podcasts on business stuff, some political stuff, but mainly just kind of covering what's going on in Seattle and how that translates to what's happening politically here. A lot of the stuff is business-related Seattle, and it's not going well. But this Dropbox story, it has kind of a silver linings for Seattle as well. So you're gonna have to just put up with me and keep listening to me, or keep watching me, whatever platform you're on. But love to have you subscribe or share the content. That's a great way to get the algorithm of YouTube to recognize, all right, this old man jokester, he might actually have something to say, because a lot of people are tuning in and they're sharing his content. What is this knucklehead doing? We don't know, but we're going to push his content out more. That is what's going on. That's why so many people are subscribing, and we're able to get the content out, because unlike NBC, ABC, or CBS, we don't have their multi-million dollar marketing budgets. We kind of just let it rip the way it is organically. All right, let's jump on in. But again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for subscribing. Dropbox is the latest San Francisco tech company to make remote work permanent. When I see these headlines, I kind of think, yeah, right. Forever? I don't think so, guys. You're going to get like 6 months into it and go, oh, I guess we should go back to the office. But for a company like Dropbox, who their main product is remote access of information, it's cloud storage on a server somewhere in some high desert area where they've got super access to the internet and you can keep those computers cooled, all that nonsense, the whole computer thing. That's where you have Dropbox kind of remote stuff. But their offices in San Francisco, this is yet another company in San Francisco who is saying, all right, let's let our people work from home forever. San Francisco-based Dropbox announced yesterday, that it will stop asking employees to come into its offices and instead make remote work the standard practice. Since when do employers ask their employees, hey, you want to come in today? Would you like to come in today? All this stuff is couched in such, I don't know. I just tell people, yeah, I think we need to be in the office, or no, yeah, you go do your thing because that activity makes sense. For employees that need to meet or work together in person, the company is setting up Dropbox Studios when it's safe to do so. When are all these things going to be deemed safe? Is it based on the science and the data, like it here is in Washington, where we went from extending our drinking hour at restaurants and bars from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. based on some mysterious science? Because it wasn't safe at 10:01 to drink. Now it's safe at 11 p.m. to drink. You can do that. You can get some food at your favorite local restaurant at 11 p.m. up to 11 p.m. Don't go above 11 p.m. Don't go beyond 11 p.m. because it's not safe. Or how about you can now have 6 people sitting at a table, not 5, 6. That 6th person up until like a couple of weeks ago, Rona laden. Person number 6, Rona all over them. That's what we're saying. It's not based on any kind of data or science. It's just not. It's just ridiculous if you think that. All right, the company extended its mandatory work from home policy through June of 2021. Interesting. So they're kind of hedging their bets. They're saying, all right, let's give this another run until June. Let's pick June. Let's pick an arbitrary date way out in the future. We'll see how this goes. It certainly isn't permanent, but other companies, I think Google has given a certain percentage of their people, hey, yep, work from home, probably forever. I know Netflix wants to be back in the office. Amazon, they've always been pretty lenient. Facebook, I think they're pretty lenient right now. All the major big tech companies are like, yeah, you guys can work from home. Because let's be honest, those guys can get their jobs done from home, and it's not a major deal breaker or crusher. But I do think there is a lot of creativity with these companies that is lost through the Zoom meetings. Zoom meetings are just terrible. They're horrible. I don't do them. Don't do them. I do a podcast instead. So I'm out in front of up to 100,000 people on some of these podcasts. So I do feel the pressure, and right now I'm feeling the pressure from this very bright light over here that's about as bright as the sun that's shining on me, but I'm told that it's going to make this podcast even better. So we're going to run with that. So if you see me squinting, it's because I've got the second sun right here lighting up my forehead. Remote work outside an office will be primarily experienced for all employees and day-to-day default for individual work, the company said in a blog post. For employees who need to meet or work together in person, the company is setting up Dropbox Studios in San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, and Dublin. Dublin. That is interesting. So that's their European setup there. So San Francisco, West Coast, Seattle, West Coast, Austin, Southwest, no East Coast. That's interesting, right? But when you are a company that basically just hosts data, do you really need a Dropbox Studio in the East Coast if you don't already have people there? I am guessing that they are already set up in these cities. I don't know if Seattle has a presence with Dropbox, but Yeah. Maybe should we go over what Dropbox does? I think everybody knows what Dropbox does. It allows you to store information on a computer, online, in the cloud. You can get it on your phone, access it through all kinds of different platforms. Doesn't matter what they are. As long as you have the online account, you can get your information. It's pretty cool. I use it a lot. I have a lot of documents there that I save that I need to grab on whatever appliance I have. And I think it's actually one of the few good uses of technology, and I support Dropbox. I'm not being paid for this. It's just a tool that I use within my business. We'll have studios in all locations. We currently have offices. All right, so that's what it was. Whether they're dedicated spaces in places we currently have long-term leases and a high concentration of employees, San Francisco, Seattle, Austin, and Dublin to start, or on-demand spaces in other geographies. On-demand spaces. That means like a WeWork or something. Yep, we're just going to pop up with this. Dropbox had more than 2,800 employees as of December 31st, according to its latest 8K, the corporate report. More companies are starting to consider remote work as a more permanent option due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Twitter and Square are letting employees work from home, quote unquote, forever. While Microsoft said workers will have more flexibility to work from home, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg predicted in May that 50% of employees will be working remotely within the next decade. 50% within the next decade. That is not an aggressive prediction, is it? Well, in the next 10 years, we think half of you guys might work remotely. So much of this stuff is unknown. I mean, who really knows? I really can't see a lot of these companies going, yeah, you guys just work from home because we're getting the same productivity out of you. I don't honestly see that happening. I've said that time and time and time again. I don't work in a big corporate office, but I know that it's important to have that interaction with people, to be able to see people, see what they're doing, see how they're reacting to ideas. You got to have that at some point. And guess what? Hiding behind a camera like I do here with you guys on this podcast or behind a microphone, you can't really see what's going on. You can't really see what I'm thinking, to be honest. You get a good enough feel on a podcast because we're not in an employee-employer relationship. Although it would be good if you guys bought more merch like I have right here. Coffee cup. I'm pointing at a coffee cup for those of you on the YouTube. We've got merch. It's apparently on our YouTube channel. So I'm supposed to encourage people to buy that, but I don't really want to because that feels awkward. And I just want to talk about nonsense. So without the pressure to go into an office every day, some people have chosen to move out of Silicon Valley and look for more affordable and larger options. That's pushed down the cost of rental housing in San Francisco, historically the most expensive place to live in the area. So I did a podcast on how the city of San Francisco proper is its upper end housing market has kind of stalled. There's more inventory on the market, just a little bit, but not a lot. But for California, those numbers are really kind of telltale of what's going on. So you've got companies like Dropbox that are consistently saying, you know what, you guys don't need to live here because guess what, you're not working in an office. If I was an employee of Dropbox, based on this article, would I be selling my home would I be selling my really expensive home in San Francisco and moving elsewhere? No, because I think they're going to jerk the cord. I think they're going to jerk the chain and say, you know what, that whole pandemic thing, we've got this vaccine now. You guys are all microchipped. Vaccinated. You guys are all vaccinated now. And so we're okay with you coming back into the office. I believe that the whole work from home thing is a temporary solution. Maybe we go to something, and I've said this many times, maybe we go to something where people have the option to work Fridays from home. But here in Seattle, with a lot of the tech industry, that was already kind of industry standard. Our Friday traffic was always way less than Thursday. In my humble opinion, I don't do a lot of commuting. I go 3 miles from my home in Bellevue to my office in Bellevue. I don't really go around a lot, but I'm still out and about at times and experiencing traffic. And guess what? Friday used to be a nightmare to do appraisals You'd be out at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Friday, and traffic would just be snarled, just horrific. Because like Seattle, like any other big city, and specifically Seattle, our roads are so bad as far as their design and their capacity to hold traffic. We don't have the ability to increase our infrastructure like a lot of other cities, like a Dallas or an Austin. Yep, you got a whole bunch of just vacant land, cut and go. Here in Seattle, you've got a woodpecker tree, or a spotted owl. Then you got the ocean, you got a lake, you got a mountain, you got all this stuff that you can't just destroy to put a freeway in. So our traffic is bad. Plus, we just never really caught up. Our infrastructure of our road system has never caught up with our population growth, and so we've got really bad traffic. That is just kind of what goes on. Without the pressure to go into an office every day, some people have chosen to move out of Silicon Valley and look for more affordable and larger options. I do see that as a trend, but I don't see that as a huge trend. I see a lot of people searching and kind of looking and going, okay, yeah, that might be an option. And where I do see that impacted is on the studio condos and on the one-bedroom condos. Those are the kiss of death right now, in my opinion, and specifically in the downtown corridors, where you've already got this sense of it's too tight, it's too close. If you don't have enough space to do your thing, which might be your home now is your gym, it is your workplace, it's your daycare, it's your school, if you've got kids, all of that stuff. So if you don't have a home that's big enough, a studio or a one bedroom, not gonna cut it. And then specifically downtown Seattle, we've got a political situation, and a lot of other blue, mainly predominantly blue states have the same thing. There's some rioting going on downtown. There's homelessness, there is crime, and people just don't want to be there. So there's this exodus, and there's specifically an exodus from downtown San Francisco, not only housing-wise, but job-wise as well, because there's so many tech companies in San Francisco, just like there are here in Seattle. And guess what? If you don't have to live in downtown, you're moving out. New York, exact same thing. New York did a podcast on 15,000 empty apartment units as of, I think, a month ago, something like that. Now, normally they would have somewhere around 5,000 a month just in flux that are vacant. Right now they got 15,000, so 3 times the vacant units that are normal in San Francisco. And that's because all those people, they wanted to get the heck out of Dodge. The Rona, don't want to get it. Super dense there in New York City specifically. And a lot of those people just like, yep, we're out of here. And a lot of people are saying, yep, we're out of here in San Francisco as well. For example, the median rent for a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco dropped more than 20% from a year ago, down to $2,830 for a two-bedroom or for a one-bedroom apartment in San Francisco. That's according to a report from real estate startup 𝒂𝒐𝒅𝒄𝒂𝒔𝒕. That's the largest decline the company has recorded ever. That's crazy. So that's the largest decline the company has recorded. So things are going the wrong way in San Francisco, kind of like they are here in downtown Seattle, but for some different reasons. Mainly employment related in San Francisco, because you've got a bigger tech structure in downtown San Francisco. And this is just kind of from what I figured out reading and when I've been there, kind of looking around, and from all the podcasts and things and YouTube videos that I watch, kind of putting all the pieces together. I don't live there. I live here in Seattle. Specifically a suburb east of Seattle, and these are my experiences. But Seattle has just been kind of hammered on. The downtown has been hammered on. And a lot of that is because we've got a progressive, Democratic-run leadership that doesn't really understand business, doesn't have a clue. And a lot can be said of the same for like a Portland, where things just are not structured for businesses to have an environment where they can kind of keep going and do their thing. Instead, in San Francisco, they are being pushed out, and they are going in droves to places like Texas, because just the regulation in Texas is so much less. And in San Francisco, you've got a state employment tax of, I think it's 13%, high 12s or low 13%, which is just incredible to live in a state. You move to another state, guess what? Don't have to pay that tax. Although I think the state of California was talking about making it They'd chase you down for 10 years, something like that. I mean, just some nutty stuff coming out of California. And I've been watching a lot of YouTubes on the homeless situation in Venice Beach, because that is a real hot topic right now. It is, you've got homeless encampments on the beach and a lot of the boardwalk where it used to be just kind of cool. You watch the rollerbladers run around, watch the bodybuilders at Muscle Beach, Venice Beach. You don't have a lot of that going on because people are kind of worked up about how many homeless people there are that have just moved in and taken over these areas. Same thing here in Seattle. I did a podcast on a metal shop with an actual... You had a metal shop operating within a homeless encampment near a golf course in a park setting run by the Seattle Parks Department. And what happens when people call on these homeless encampments? Nothing. Done a bunch of podcasts on that. That's an ongoing topic that city leadership here in Seattle needs to deal with. Same thing in San Francisco. And back at it in New York City, same thing. Not quite as bad there from what I understand, but they used to have a serious problem. But New York City is such a big city that there's always a lot going on. But Seattle and San Francisco, man, homelessness issues are just out of control. So as we see more stories like this that impact the downtown core structures and impact the suburban areas, because guess what? If you don't have to live close to downtown, you might move a little further out, because if you no longer have to come into an office, if you work for a Dropbox in San Francisco, like so many companies, same thing here in Seattle, if you work for a Google, if you work for a Facebook, and they're saying, well, you don't really need to work here. Maybe you live on Maui. I don't know. Just have to work out the time difference. Maybe you live in a rural area way farther out, and you just don't have to worry about traffic. Maybe you come into the office once a month. Maybe you come into the office twice a month, whatever it is. But a lot of companies are going to that. A lot of companies are saying, oh, it's going to be permanent. I don't see that yet. I would not put money on that. I would say that this is still a temporary situation with the whole coronavirus thing, but companies are trying to be accommodating with their employees who don't want to come into an office environment. But I'm seeing more and more traffic on the road here in Seattle, indicative of people going to work, going back home. Just there's more activity out there. It's still not the same as it was before. But it's getting better or worse depending on how you look at it. So that's my take on the whole Dropbox scenario. I know they're saying that they're going to a permanent work solution, but by permanent, they mean until the middle of 2021. And I think that's all the further anybody's making predictions right now, even big companies that are saying, oh, you guys can work from home forever. Nah, I think if we get a vaccine, everybody gets chipped up, vaccinated, that you'll be in a different work environment. And a lot of these companies will be like, yeah, that whole work from home thing, that was a good experiment. And it's nice to know that we can do that down the road. But let's bring the troops home. Let's bring the team back together. Let's put the band back on the road. And by back on the road, I mean in the office. That's what I think you'll see happen. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Wouldn't be the first time. Certainly wouldn't be the last time. But that's my opinion, and that's why you're tuning in to the Seattle Real Estate Podcast, to hear a middle-aged white guy talk about what he thinks may or may not be correct. Thanks for tuning in. Again, I'm Sean Reynolds from Summit Properties Northwest, Reynolds & Kline Appraisal. I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.